Doing, Ralph?
Doing good. How you doing?
Doing well.
How'd it go today?
Went well. We were closed, but I got the tank that leaked a couple weeks ago fixed. At least I think it's fixed. I haven't turned it on yet because I want to give the fittings a chance to dry overnight. But I think it's done.
Nice. One less headache.
Yep. How about you?
That's it. I just got home. I dropped off Alexa at her friend's house.
Okay.
So I'm like, you know what? Let me call in and I'm like settling into my spot.
All right. You're Martinsville Garage.
That's right.
Back in town.
That's where I do my best thinking, Ken. Away from all the ladies in my house.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Let me say hello to. What's going on, Chris Olson? How you been? You all right, Chris? Haven't seen you in a bit. I unmuted you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. What's going on in Chris Olson's world?
I don't know. Just started having a little more free time and want to get back involved with these classes. And I always learn something by just listening in, if nothing else.
Okay. Well, good to see you back.
Thank you.
Well, we're talking about honesty. We started it last night, and we'll continue that discussion tonight. Okay. How about let me kick it off with we read a little bit from the Office of Shaman last night. I'd like to do that again tonight. Maybe pique your interest. You could ask some questions. Don't forget the chat box down below. If you got a question, you could ask it. If you want to come on, you can use that. I'll unfreeze your mic.
And do you know if Nicole's, did you try to do hers?
I don't know that. Let's see. I see Nicole on. Let's just see. I'll see if. Hey, Nicole, how you doing? Can you hear me? You may still have to.
Oh, I can't.
Can you? Kind of. Sort of can. Yeah.
Too many cars.
Yep. Might have mic issue. Well, back, Nicole. I hope you're enjoying the series. A quiet place. Yeah. Ask. We'll more formal introduction. How does that sound?
This sounds here.
Okay. Well, so how's everybody doing? Let's see. I'm going to read from Office of Shaman. All right, here goes. If a shaman or anyone else wishes to be honest with those around him, as well as himself, then he has to find a way around the agreements which other people want for their pet programs and general dishonesty. How can the shaman agree that a particular foible is unavoidable? How can he agree that a lie in any form is an acceptable substitute for reality? If he stands against the lie, won't he alienate those he wishes to aid? The truth is often a frightening prospect for a shaman, and a shaman might not have time to appropriately deal with an individual who actually asks for his help. The father may be so incensed that the shaman was honest that the situation escalates too rapidly for reason. The only option left to protect the child may be blunt, well-crafted statements which the father has to deal with at another time. The father must love the child even if he becomes angry at the moment about the truth of the situation. The blunt statement may evoke anger at the time, but in a few days or weeks, the truth may weigh heavily enough that the father will have to accept it. I thought a lot about this, really, and I talked to you guys somewhat about how I grew up and my corporate life of, polite smiles and winks and nods and having a law firm for all those years and watching people come and watching people go and having clients and watching the clients go through the same thing that the law firm was going through, which is to say, the business would be struggling in places and we'd see the same struggles over and over again. And, I don't know that I can say that we don't stop to think about it, because I think we all see that something is afoul, something is amiss. I mean, I can't get myself ever to say that I missed it. What I can say for sure is that I saw something and I turned a blind eye to it many, many, many times. Many times. Why? Well, I think I was scared, or I wanted people to like me, and I thought that if I was direct, then they wouldn't. It really took me a bunch of years for me to be honest with myself. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. I had to look at it and really think about, am I really being nice? Do they really like me? And have I really accomplished anything that I've ever set out to do when I take the approach of, no, I'm going to watch what's going on here and turn a blind eye to it, even though I can see within my relationships, my clients' relationships, that something's not working right. I remember one example, which I think I talked about previously. My dad died in 2011, and he dealt with my brother and my brother's wife and kids a lot more than I had known at the time. I don't know whether he was just dealing with it and shielding me from it. Maybe I was turning a blind eye to it. It's not, I'm not sure about that part. But what I am sure about is that after my dad died, I started to really find out what was going on. And what went on for my brother is, there was, substance abuse. I've had that in my family, and yeah, it wasn't a good situation. It really, it wasn't. The kids were at risk, and the relationship was at risk, and everybody's health was at risk, and I mean, lives were on the line. But it's my older brother. My older brother, 18 months older than me, and I always, I had a really, I always looked up to him, and I never, I never said anything to him that was really, really honest about what I saw. I mean, especially when I saw that what he was doing was not working out well for him and his family. Instead, I'd go about it with a pretty please and, and pat him on the back, and it'd be okay. And I remember one day clearly just coming to the realization it wasn't okay. It wasn't even close to okay. I wasn't sure really what to do. There was a point when I was going to step in and call the authorities myself to get the kids taken out of the house because it wasn't a healthy situation. So I sucked it up, and I had a conversation with my brother about, this now goes back maybe about 6 years ago. that I had never had. And the conversation was one that me as a little brother, I never talked to him like that. It really went something like, I know what's going on. I can see what's going on in that household, and I can see how you're fueling this fire by allowing your kids to do things, by treating your wife like shit, and by agreeing that she's less than, and a whole bunch of things, lots of which I was very familiar with. Well, because as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I didn't hold back, not even a bit. And at the end of it, it was, click, and I was, I was sure he heard it, but I was also sure that he didn't care too much for that. That kind of honesty, he had not heard from me, his brother, ever. I don't remember how long, whether it was a week or a month. It was some period of time before I heard from him. And it wasn't even a voice call. It was like a text message that I got that was just really short, that basically said, I needed that. And he did need to hear that. He really did. That's honesty, that's what we're talking about here. And it really started, as we said yesterday, started with me. It really did, because it's God. I mean, how do I even know how to talk to my brother unless I look in and, man, is my hair really that long? I need a haircut. Unless I really thought about it, like, what do I do? Like, what's my contributing thing here? Like, where am I agreeing and winking and nodding that all sorts of shit that I see is okay with me? And I had to consider, like, even what my silence meant. Like, what does your silence mean when you're watching things go on with other people that you're close to, and that you could give them a hand, but yet you hold back for what? Because of what I did, fear or resistance of what, that they might not like you, really? Well, that was really where the honesty for me was. I had to look at what the value of that was and what I was really doing. It turns out it was really fucking selfish, really, because the only thing I was really doing was trying to protect myself, and the dirty side of that was was hanging people out to dry. That I saw. It didn't even seem like a really good way to practice law at the time. It seemed in retrospect, as I looked back at my law career, like, wow, there's a better way to go at this. I can see now where people, where the issues are. They're in relationships. They're in the agreements we hold with people. And if we're going to have empathy, I offer to you for consideration that honesty is an essential part of that. In fact, the kind of honesty, not the little modicum every so often, maybe only on Sunday kind of honesty, but the kind of honesty which really, stops ourselves in our tracks or stops someone else in their tracks. So they got to listen. So now, does anybody want to tell me that their definition of friendship is something other than that? Or maybe somebody else is listening in that can weigh in on how they see this topic.
Well, I can think of an incident kind of like that, in that my son growing up, and he still is struggling with drugs and alcohol. And this incident, he was in high school. He didn't have his driver's license yet. And he got loaded. I don't know exactly what he took, but he was driving around in one of our cars and up on the sidewalk, and a nice man who knew my son from his son, called and said, you got to do something. Your kid's out here driving around and he's really in a dangerous spot. And we went and we got him and we brought the car home, and we didn't let, we got him out of sight so that the police didn't pick him up or anything like that. And at the time I was going to an old AA guy as a therapist. And he let me have it when I reported what had happened. He said, "You just stole that young man's lesson. You cleaned it up for him. You made it antiseptic, and he didn't learn a goddamn thing from what you did." And I had to sit my own self down and think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The complete lack of regard for what the kid really needed. And how, if I had carried through that day, maybe, I don't know. I can't say. Maybe it'd be different today. I don't know. But it was a lesson for me to learn, not him. Brutal honesty with myself first.
Yeah. Right. Otherwise, how do you know what even someone else is doing and saying if you're not, if you don't start with yourself? It's like, are you running a fantasy, or are you sure you're seeing things clearly? We got to look first at, the lens that we look at the world. And that was true for me. And I think that's what you're describing, at least.
Total fantasy. If you could clean it up, it wasn't there.
Yep.
That's complete bullshit.
Yep. I don't know if my friend Jenny here is listening in, but I know like she came on a night or two ago, and I think she spoke to, I forget who, maybe she spoke to Greg, and yeah, she's been really helpful to me, and I hope I can say the same to her, because I know that when she sees something that I'm doing, she's going to talk to me about it. But I also know that when I first met her, she kind of hide that a little bit, with a laugh and things, and a hat, and and things, I mean, so I know that when I was thinking about this topic today and the places where I would talk to people, and then I pat myself on the back that I talked to them, I also had to be honest about things like, but am I really getting it across? Am I really making sure that sticks? And I know, in my friendship with Jenny over the years, I've seen her work through things like that. I don't know if you listen in, Jenny, but well, you'll hear from her at some point. I mean, yeah, and it came a point when she didn't sugarcoat it anymore. There was no, laugh, behind it, which, could undercut it. Let me give you a kind of an example about what I mean by this. Go ahead. Does anybody kind of want to jump in before I tell another story?
Well,
Okay.
at some point, Ken, I'd be interested to hear you kind of connect some of this back up to what you said about navigating agreements in that first reading.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you got anything on there? I definitely welcome if if you want to make a bridge here and help.
Hey, Ken.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa.
Hello, Mary, and hello, everybody.
Sounds like I
Yeah,
think
jump
that
right in.
I think that we need a little help from old guy Dubs. It sounds like
Well, yeah. Why don't
maybe
you
he can like bridge around like that stuff that you were talking about in the beginning.
Okay. You want to see if you can fish him out with a question?
No.
And I think he may play coy with you if you can't ask him a question. What do you want? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the starting thing is that thing that nobody can agree to something that isn't real. And I know that when I haven't been honest with myself, it's been really hard for people to agree with me, because I would be, selling something that wasn't really honest or real.
Okay.
I think today he was talking to us about earlier, like we have our little chit chats. Wasn't he talking about like you can see the belief if you, how did he say that? I'm tongue-tied here. You can see you can see the belief with the reality that you have, right? Is that how you said it?
Yeah, because absolutely everything around you is a result of agreement, and the conglomeration of agreements that you have with different people. You know, your spouse, your boss, your community.
Everything you perceive
is a result of agreements.
right.
Everything you
And
perceive.
so, yeah, that's how you know that it's real, because you talk with somebody else and they agree with you about it. And so then you say, is that what I'm looking at? And they say, yeah, that's what you're looking at. So what you say, how do they call you? How do you call that? And they tell you how they call it. And you say, okay, I would call it that thing too.
Yeah. So let maybe play with that a little bit, like, be right, because the Kaplan family, like the Worthington family and the Aquaviva family and the Jones and the Olson and oh yeah, the Tully family and all, we hold agreements. I did, with my brother Steve. I'm not even sure how to call it other than the kind of behavior of make nice that I did myself. Steve was also, that was very much a part of the whole family, the way that we dealt with things or didn't deal with things. And so I think what you're saying, John, is that what I perceived or what Steve perceived or what my mom or anybody else was all the result of those agreements that we held. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. In other words, if you look at the reality that you see in the world, I mean, whatever that is, whether it's well, of course I can do this, or of course women I think that way, or of course this is logical. It may really not be all that logical. It may not really be all that evident to anybody, but what you perceive is real. Somebody else may not perceive that at all.
Yeah.
And they'll be just as right about their perceptions as you are about yours, because they're basing it on what they have agreements for.
Yeah, it's real interesting because you say they'll be just as right as I am because their perceptions, how they look at the world, is based on the agreements they hold.
Yeah.
But
And
I'd
you're
add a important caveat. I think that doesn't mean that the perceptions that I looked at, that my family looked at, actually were, I don't want to say this, maybe real thing. Lots of them were fantasy things, like the world's being done onto us. Yeah, we agreed to that, but that doesn't mean that the world was actually
okay.
done onto us.
Well,
Yeah,
can
but that.
something here?
Yeah.
Well, sorry I missed your invitation there, Ken. I was dealing with some things.
Okay.
So,
No worries.
um,
Hello, Jenny.
hi. I think that maybe the ties with our family are the strongest because that's where we grew up, and we had so many different people in our families to represent that idea. I mean, maybe that's what it is. I mean, I see it with my mom and my nana, as opposed to what I've learned throughout the years, and the differences I've seen because of being in Mexico for so long, and then being back, and how my family wants everything to be nice all the time, not to reprimand William, not to tell him no, and a lot of times I'm always like, well, if I don't, how does that run out? In William, say,
Yeah.
if I just agree with them that he should have everything and he doesn't understand. He damn well understands no. He's 2, but he understands no. He'll do otherwise, but it's because he's testing,
Yeah. Yeah, he's testing the perimeter fences of what he can get away with.
What he can do. But if you were watched by like your aunt, say, she probably has the same kind of ideas, as her parents or her brothers and sisters. And so, when you're bounced around a lot like that when you're younger, of course, all those things are reinforced, and then until you're a teenager and you're out of the house. It's a different story, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And in my case, like the first real look at something different was after my dad left and my mom married a, I was still young. I think she remarried and I was maybe 4, and there was a new sheriff in town.
And you were so bent out of shape, weren't you?
Oh my God, I would plot. I would go. My brother and I would go up at the room at night, cry ourselves to sleep, and talk about ways that we would kill him if we could. Of course, what we were just angry because he saw how rebelliousness and kids that run around to do whatever they want plays out. He didn't grow up that way. He grew up in a military household. He was a military guy who fought in the Korean War, and then he married my mom, and well, he had two pretty rebellious kids. We didn't care very much for that discipline, not at all. Nor did we see what. Well, you know what? This part I'm not so sure about. I was going to say we didn't see what he was doing. I think we saw what he was doing. I think we just didn't like it. How dare, It's like, redoing the agreement. I think in effect that's what he was doing, so that we can perceive something different. Because everybody else in the family was like, yeah, you're okay. Everybody's okay. And you get to do whatever you want. And he was like, no, sirree. You kids listen up here, Ken and Steve, my brother, and
Kind of translates into a different kind of love. Maybe you never saw it as that.
yeah. Well, is that not what we're talking about here, really? I mean, you can call that a love, or you can call it a kindness, or you can call that, like we do in the book, empathy. As we are building for you guys that are listening in, we're talking about the first part of the book, tools, and each tool connects with a function and an energetic expression of who you are from the soul, and it's a structure that you use to get along better with people. So in this case, we're talking about the tool of brutal honesty, and as Elise just mentioned, yeah, it's why? Well, if you're brutally honest with yourself, then you can see what somebody else is saying and doing, and you could be able to connect and reach in and actually care for them because you are doing that, being honest with yourself and with them.
For purposes of this conversation, can you touch on harmony a little bit? Because I know this is something that, Patrick, if you don't mind, I'm also wondering how you were thinking about what I said to you earlier today.
Let's see if I could see.
I'm just taking a look at it now.
Oh, okay.
Well, what was
Well, so like I've been thinking about this also in terms of like dyads or couples, It's like, so we oftentimes get into these relationships, right? And we find people that we get along with, right?
okay? Yeah.
Or whatever. And why is that? I mean, you see a lot of people, like I had a conversation with a woman today about, well, is this person just codependent on that person? And maybe we just find people that have the same types of backgrounds that we do, the same agreements like our families do. And so it looks good or feels good. And then the minute that it's outside of our scope or outside of our assemblage point, say, We don't like it. We defend. We see that there's a threat.
Could I make a different analogy that maybe would help clear that up for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. If I think about it in terms of energy, or in terms of vibrational energy in particular, which all energy must in fact be vibrational, then I can think about it in terms of the harmonies which you're talking about, and what I have to consider in terms of being brutally honest with myself is this the only harmony that I can sing? I mean, must I always sing barbershop? Must I always sing church harmonies? Must I always sing jazz harmonies? Can I sing blues harmonies?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I sing any of those harmonies depending on what's being played? Well, now you got something, I guess. Now you're a musician if you can do that.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I think, I'd go so far as to say that often people, if not often, that they've got one way they assemble the world, one lens that they look at, and they can sing one tune, and that tune might be
Or they can they know a single song.
yeah,
Someone done me wrong song, you know.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, there are lots of different there's lots of different ways of considering that. Okay, and so one of the things that for me that was very important was to realize that, you know, there was a reason my dad liked country music.
Okay, I thought that would only be because to punish the family, but I gather you discovered some other reason.
Well, that's how he thought about things, you know, like that, right? Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I found out that he secretly listened to rock and roll, but that was only because he liked milking to it. But that was a different story. But anyway, you know, here's the thing: is that what I'm trying to get you guys to see is, like, you know, just because you can sing a particular song or a particular style of music doesn't mean that that's the only kind of style of music that there is, or the only style of music that you can sing or play.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying, right? If I was, well, let's just say, as a, singing with someone else, I actually wanted to have a band, even if it was a duo or duet or a trio or a whole big jazz band or rock and roll band. I'd be wise, to say the least here, to start to be able to, play in harmony with other people instead of everybody going out and doing their own solos all the time. That doesn't make much of a band, but I use this as a band. I could just as well substitute family or law firm or business about,
Okay, let's think about it this way for a second. Would the Grateful Dead actually have been a good band if they had been a solo act? If they were all solo acts?
No chance.
No chance. No chance at all.
Yep.
No. As a matter of fact, what's his name? The lead singer on that band. What's his name? Huh?
Jerry Garcia.
Yeah. He didn't even play that anymore when he played with David Grisman. They didn't play rock and roll. They played 1930s jazz, acoustic jazz is what they played, and they started off with children's songs.
Yeah, I didn't know that. It's interesting.
But Grisman, from there, Grisman built an entire career. After Jerry's death, Grisman continued to build his career. He played with Stefan Grappelli. So, think about how honest one has to be with oneself to be able to get down to playing all those different genres on a frickin' mandolin, let's say. Okay. But the thing is that you play it on your instrument. You have to do what you do. I mean, there's a cut on from a song that he does where he says, I picked up the guitar one time and I realized real pretty quick that wasn't what I needed to be playing. Okay, you have to think about that everybody has their own thing that they do, and so that's part of this brutal honesty thing is to be honest with yourself about what you do best. Not what somebody told you to do, not what you think you're supposed to do, but what do you do?
Yeah.
And if you do you, and you do the best you that there can be done, and there could be people that do it as well as you do, but not anybody any better, just as well as you do. That's fine. Hey, it doesn't get any better than that. So, but you're not going to get there if you're kidding yourself, if you're lying to yourself, if you're blaming somebody else for where the hell you are and what the hell's going on with you. The only way that you get past all of that stuff is you stop and you say, okay, you know what? In my reality, I see this crap that I don't like, or I don't see enough of what I want, or I see this going on, I see that going on, and you do something about it. Now, if people piss and moan and gripe and groan because you're doing something about it, then maybe you need to figure out why they're doing that. Maybe they have reason. Maybe they don't, but you aren't going to know unless you're brutally honest enough with yourself to say, you know what? I don't know what the hell they're griping and complaining about. Yo, dude, do that. Explain me to it, please. I want to understand what the hell you're talking here.
Yep. Do tell. What do you see? What was that about?
Yeah.
All those things.
I mean, if you're gonna be all pissy and mad and butthurt and so forth, least you can do is explain to me what it is I done. Well, wait a minute. Why did you come up with that? I didn't see it from there. Well, that makes for a long-going discussion,
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can get to that place in a discussion, then you know what, you're going to learn some stuff about yourself and about the other person as well. And you can't be really too mad at the other person thinking how they think, because they're being as honest with themselves as you're being with you. You'd hope, at least, right?
Right. Yeah.
And if they're not, then if you're not, then do you have a relationship there?
Uses a
Pat, does that help any?
to steer the horse. Ooh.
I don't know what we got in the background, but I'm hearing steering horses.
William's watching a show.
And then
It's for Pat, right? Steering the horse. Got that?
Yep. Yeah, I definitely need to steer the horse. And with regards to what Jenny was saying in your response here.
I didn't see that convo that you guys were having, so if you can fill in for the studio audience
Yeah.
context here, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be awesome.
I'm just having some difficulties dealing with a couple of folks that I work with. Having a hard time getting them to set the expectations for the client, and having a hard time with teaching them how to steer the client and quite honestly, help the company out and in the long run as well. And we cannot come to any agreements, and there's a lot of complaining going on, a lot of the blame game going on, and I just don't seem to have patience for it. So
Pat, can I ask a couple questions? Who are these people to you? Are these people who work for you? Are these people that you work with, that you're forced to work with? Who are they to you? What's the relationship? I don't need to know
people
particular, just
that's
they're people I'm forced to work with.
Forced like they don't report to you or you to them, or they're just kind of colleague thingies. That's the
They're,
That's
they're
what
colleagues, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't report to me directly, no.
Okay.
No.
For what it's worth, you know, squeaky wheels get grease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing more squeaking than me, I think.
Well, you know, you need, that's where this ruthless, patient, cunning, and sweet thing comes in, because
Yeah.
if the battle's worth fighting, it's worth winning, isn't it, Pat?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, if you start into a battle thinking you're defeated, don't go into the battle.
Uh-huh. I'm
Okay,
already
so
defeating myself. Hmm.
okay, so here's the thing. You know, you don't have to win. You don't have to have a big, huge showdown to defeat little assholes like this. You can pick away at their weaknesses. You know, they have Achilles heels. They got lots of them, or they wouldn't be bitching and moaning and playing the blame game. They're not using their entire brain. There's no frickin' way. If you're blaming, you can't be thinking clearly.
Yep. That's
So,
for sure.
so whenever they're blaming, you have an opportunity to be waiting for them to say, "Oh, really? You're going to blame somebody else for what? Didn't you tell me you're going to get this done? How is it somebody else's fault you're not done? I don't understand. Please explain me to this." And I can tell you that I've asked that question a lot of times to folks, actually, and it does some. It can do some stuff. But one of them is they can piss them off. They never talk to you again, which would be good, because then you don't have to deal with them. See, that way they just run away, and whoever it is that hired them would get somebody else to replace them. Somebody you can deal with.
And that's kind of where our last conversation went with one, well, probably with both of them. They got a little snippy with me, and
stand your ground, dude.
I haven't heard from them.
Well,
Should I go seek them out?
Oh, no. If they have something to do, make sure that just wait for them to get it done. If they don't get it done, then you say, "What the fuck is it?" You just you quit thinking for them, you quit protecting them, and you lay it out for them to deal with themselves, because otherwise they're gonna blame you for it. So don't help them for anything. Don't tell them anything. Nothing. It's like, hey, boys and girls, it's on your shoes.
Yeah. All right.
That's where patient, ruthless. See, I mean, you have to be a ruthless motherfucker to do that, Patrick. Trust me, you do. Just to sit right there and say, I know you know, to myself, I have done this more than a couple of times. Sit right there and watch somebody do something, thinking, I know that this is going to be costly. I understand it's going to be costly, but it's not going to be nearly as costly as if they do this again. So let me go ahead and be patient right here. Let them get into it, where I get their hand in the cookie jar, and then I can put my big old machete right up there against their arm and say, do you want a long sleeve or you want a short sleeve? Okay. And the thing is that when I put that machete up there, I want them to believe that I mean one or the other. Whether I do or not, I want them to believe it. Because I'm in a battle for my life, and I know these little motherfuckers are going to kill me if they get a chance. So I want them to believe strongly that whatever is necessary is what we're going to do here.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yep. This is we're talking about some pretty kick-ass skills as far as I'm concerned, right? Because we're dealing always with I could use John's phrase, people who are not maximizing the use of their thinking machinery. They may be divided. They may sing one tune. They may blame. They may think of things in terms of only rights and wrongs. And you just know if you're using more of your brain or using these tools, that's observable. And so what John's doing is like, what do you do with that? Well, what do you want to do with that? That's where patience, cunning, ruthlessness, and sweetness comes in, is what we call, the moods of a warrior, or the moods of think of warrior as any aspect of life. You know, you're a warrior in your relationships. You're a warrior in your business. You've got a decided advantage at that point. I remember early on, and maybe it was the last go around when we first met Ralph. I think Ralph talked about a story about he was checking out of a restaurant distribution thing called Restaurant Depot, and he ran into a guy, and the guy had asked to check a receipt, and he you know, he got bent out of shape that the guy was checking his receipt. You know, I could tell Ralph learned from that, but the point that I'm making is, you know, he was toast at that point. He was toast because he was doing what your colleagues, Pat, are doing. Just, you know, blaming or, you know, dealing in rights and wrongs. And when you step outside of that, wow, you got room to maneuver. You know, you got room to look
Yeah.
in at what someone else is really doing. What are they really, you know, what are they doing? And from that point, that, you know, that's, yeah, that's, you know, that's golden in terms of getting shit done.
All right.
Mining data is legal, just for what it's worth, and data is all kinds of things, including where Achilles' heels are.
Yep. Yep. That just described to me how I think about that is business. What you that's, you know, that's business. I don't know, and I could put it into a Peter Drucker quote maybe to say that, you know, what does he say? You know, businesses have I don't know. I could say he has the two functions, you know, innovation and marketing, but you know, both of those require mining data. Yeah. What do you guys think? Any pause for question or comment? You guys got anything on your mind? Okay. Well, you know what I want to show you then, but you can pipe up anytime. I want to show you something that I don't know for some of you that we've showed you this yet, called what we call the playing field, the mining data field, which I've, you know, now, if you're like me, this, the first time you see it, will be like, what the fuck, you know? But what we're talking about here is very much structural, very much a way that you can do what John's talking about, mining data, paying attention to what's already happening in your life. So there's nothing in this chart, which I understand is maybe for lots of you, you haven't seen much of this, but we're building up to this in this series. We're building up so that you can do the things that we're talking about. Maybe, you know, sing in harmony with somebody else, be empathetic for somebody, or as John made reference to, knowing what your strengths are, how you do something. You can call that part specific function. Each of the tools that we've been talking about connects with one of the let's call them functions, because that's what they're called on this playing field. And so this playing field is all about agreement. It's all about, how do I get reality more to my liking? You know, because as we pointed out, if you look around, whatever you see, you've had your hand in that. You've created that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's in your reality. You hold agreements that support that. Maybe that might not be a popular thing to say, but that's true. The good news is, guess what? You can mine data. You can use these tools we're talking about to create agreements more to your liking. What else?
Yeah, well, how would you do that? Show
Well,
me.
let's yeah, let's say that somebody picked up the tool of that we're talking about yesterday, the tool of honesty, or what you call brutal honesty. Uh, that tool is associated with what we call on this chart empathy function, which you'll see in the right upper quadrant. Okay, and I talked a little bit about this before. Like, can you really be empathetic with somebody? I mean, can I really be empathetic with my brother if I wanted myself to feel good, wanted my brother to like me without taking a hard look and really seeing if I was being someone that really cared about him or I was being someone that was hanging him out to dry? That was a big, like, holy shit, I'm hanging people out to dry kind of thought. That's where the brutal honesty came in with me. But then when I am honest with myself, uh, from there, I can look at what's going on for my brother. I had to start there. Without starting there, it had come out preachy, or do what I say is not what I do. So the empathy part there of dealing with my brother had to do with being honest. And so all we're doing here with this thing you're looking at here is to connect for you, give you a structure to understand the aspects of agreement. Honesty. Ooh, if I'm honest with myself, I can then be empathetic. I can be empathetic and figure out what, somebody else needs, like what's going on for them. And I got to start with me first. Or as Jenny was talking about, or Pat was talking about, harmony, or John was talking about singing one tune. Can you be in agreement if that's all you sing? Maybe, probably. But don't you think it'd be limiting you to just one kind of band? All right, everybody, we're going to play country music right now. Some people don't play country music. I grew up in Long Island. My wife was born in the Philippines. We were not playing the same music, but for a lot of the relationship, the harmony aspect of it was out of tune. Had to hear what she was actually saying. Just like Jerry Garcia when he left his band, and I didn't even hear the band John was talking about, but I think I got the point of the story. He was going to play some different music because that was what was required in that band. He wasn't going to do his 30-minute Grateful Dead solos at the Deadhead concerts. That just wasn't going to happen. That wouldn't have been harmonious. What else you got, John? Because you had asked the question, and I'm now running off at the mouth again, trying to answer at least what I thought you said, which was, how do you do this thing? Anybody?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. These show the folks how you guys use this as a tool. For me, I look at it like this. I say, okay, I know somebody has to be brutally honest with themselves. Okay, I know that's true. For them to be able to do anything that they want to do, that's something they have to be with themselves. Who knows what that means for them? Who knows what they're going to find? Who knows what they're not going to find? I don't care. It's just like that's a reality. They're going to have to do that for themselves. They have to look inside themselves and say, okay, you know what? This pile of shit over here is what I left over when I did such and such, or came from. I mean, whatever that was. Who cares? I don't know. Nobody really cares, really. But it is what it was. It is what it is. What it is.
Yep.
If somebody comes along and I say, well, why don't you be honest with yourself about this thing? And they say, how dare you say that I'm doing that thingy? That guy is never going to be what he says he's going to be.
He's never going to
see.
Yeah.
He can't see what he's made of.
Yeah.
He can't look at that puddle in the floor, that pile of shit that he left, or whatever you want to call that. He can't do that because it's too scary. It's too subversive.
Threatening or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Maybe it's too attractive to him or something. You know, who knows? But there's a two involved. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever that is, it's his right. It's his obligation, perhaps, to express it. I'm good with that. But the thing is I can't be good with me if I don't ask that question about why he's not being honest with himself. Whatever that answer is, I have to be good with. But that's mining information, because however he responds, whatever he does is going to tell me what he believes.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. I take it. Behind that has been for you over the years some introspection and figuring out who you are and what you do, which is behind asking the question. Yeah. But also I take very much note, as I have, of what you said when somebody doesn't want to look at it. Okay, that's fine. I've got law clients okay, that's everybody's right. I've been down a different road that I've explored, which is the road of heavy judgment. Do as I say, or preachy, and
oh yeah, that's fun.
It's not. Yeah, ask anybody that never listened to me how well that went over.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Ken, Mike just says that's what happened to him. I'm gonna unmute Mike so he can talk to you guys.
Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
It's going. How's it going with you?
Doing pretty good down here in North Carolina.
Cool. What's going on, Mike?
I just was I kind of joined
your senator.
Yes. Interesting how that happened.
Nice. Do tell me, because I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it was one of the Republicans that was opposed by Trump was just voted into the seat here. I think that also happened in Kentucky, I think.
Okay.
I think I read that. So some shifts.
Okay, interesting.
But I joined a little bit late, so I kind of come in halfway through the conversation. But John, when you were saying there about asking the question, so the last time I was on the call, I was in Pennsylvania. I was doing some testing, and we've continued to run into issues on the project. And working with the R&D folks, I'm trying to understand, well, what do we do? That's typically the biggest thing. Okay, you have a problem. What are you going to do? What are you going to solve it? And one of the things I noticed was we kept on, I would say, jumping to conclusions about what we needed, what the solution should be, when we didn't have enough data to really support it one way or the other. So it wasn't so much engineering, but as more a guessing, let's throw a dart and find out this way. And that's an expensive way to do it, both in manpower.
Kind of like the U.S. response to COVID-19, right?
One might say that, yes.
Yeah.
Someone else might say that it was a really great job.
Yeah. I've heard all kinds of I've heard all kinds of sad tales in my life. I got to tell you, yeah.
So we were having that conversation, and I noticed in myself, kind of like being, you know, that brutally honesty piece with my own self was like, what was driving a lot of my decisions was more time, because the business kept saying time is the most important thing. And so you make all your decisions based like, what's the fastest route to get this outcome? But that only works if everything works, like the solution is going to be valid. So the R&D folks kept asking, you know, kept jumping to conclusions. So basically I finally had to ask them, was like, okay, well, tell me, what's the motivator behind your decision? Why are you choosing this right now? And their answer was quite telling, because it wasn't data or anything. The reason was because that's the fastest thing we can do to test. And I said, that's the issue. We've constantly been, you know, one of the beliefs in our project probably kind of that we've agreed on without knowing is what supersedes all is speed. And sometimes you have to realize like, okay, this is hurting us more than helping us. We need to adjust that, slow it down, find the real issue, really know what's going on with this system before we go invest the time, the energy, and the dollars to take another crack at it, so to speak. So I just thought it related in a way to what you guys were talking about. I thought I'd share it.
Not in a way. That's precisely the point.
Yeah, right on point. Yeah, never worked in my sex life, but that's another story. Okay.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of up, so I don't want to hear any sad stories tonight.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Tomorrow we're gonna pick up another tool. Talk about another tool: direct knowing. So how about we see y'all tomorrow at 8 p.m. Sound good?
Sounds good. Good night.
All right.
Night.